Good evening and welcome to this edition of Defacto Review with Jargal Defacto and myself, Grace Brown. We're live on Facebook at V Television. You can also follow the conversation on Twitter, #Jargal Defacto, coming up on the program. Mongolians elect judo star business tycoon Kh.Battulga as their new president. A second round of tax hikes take effect on fuel, social insurance and electric cars. Mongolia's economy shows signs of recovery as foreign investment doubles. And the biggest festival of the year, Naadam, gets underway with traditional wrestling, archery and horse racing on show for millions of fans this week. Thank you for joining us. It's been the longest presidential election in Mongolia's history with the first ever runoff race. But on Sunday, the General Election Commission confirmed that Kh.Battulga, the Democratic Party candidate, is Mongolia's next president. He won 50.6% of the votes in Friday's election with a turnout of 60.9%. He defeated his main rival, Myagombo Enkbold of the Mongolian People's Party, who secured just 41.2% of the vote. Jargal, for people who are less familiar with Battulga, can you give us more information about him? Who is he, the politician, judo star and businessman?
Yeah, we should tell first of all he won at the second round, runoff, which first time happening in the history of the country. We are learning more about elections. Well, about Battulga, with nickname Jenko, he was a former Minister of Agriculture.
Jenko, which derives from The Godfather.
From Godfather
his
movie.
Company name, yes.
And actually, in early 90s, this idea of Godfather capitalism were kind of appealing things in the country. And he was one of the few who made a privatization of former state-owned many enterprises into own through shares. He owns now the largest meat processing factory in the country from the socialist time, also bread bakery factory, and also Hotel Bayangol, which was one of two largest hotels in the country. He is in tourism and he's trading in several businesses. Most importantly, he is the richest personally president in the history of Mongolia, and he made his wealth through this trading of shares, etc. And he is also a former president of Mongolian judo associations and the champion of sambo, and he's quite a sport person.
Sambo, which is like a
sambo.
Sambo,
Sambo.
Kind of Mongolian.
No, this is Japanese.
Martial art, a Japanese.
No, it's Japanese martial
art.
arts. That's why New York Times today called it's a Mongolian martial art person wins the election, and they said he's first in Mongolia first, like
Mongolia first. Yeah,
they have
borrowing some of Donald's
and also several other corruption cases are connected with him, and in particular the Tavan-Tolga, to the largest coal mining in the country, and the railroad, which is the bottleneck today, still existing all the way to the Chinese border, more than 270 kilometers railways line.
That was when he was Minister of Transport.
He was supposed to make this, organize all these mega projects. He did not. Now he remained, instead of the railway, there is a certain piles of dirt, bases of the railways, or half of the road, and the big scandal and the rumor and criminal cases are going around about what had happened with $280 million US. Some of his associates now is on a run abroad, and some are in prison or either in inspection. So
that's right, and Mongolia, he was arrested. He was investigated last year. His associates were arrested, and he was put under investigation for money laundering.
So that's why people are expecting now from him to answer many questions in the capacity of president, and where he is to be completely and honestly speak only the truth.
Well, despite all of these questions around him, he won. In your opinion, why did he win?
Yeah, he won. It's de facto. Though in the first round he got only 40% or less than 40%, And in the second round in Iran, the third person, Mr. Kh.Battulga from the third party, People's Revolutionary Party. By the way, this People's Revolutionary Party had not accepted the result of the first round. So it's another, I think, some court case to go ahead. But those people who were supporting Mr. Kh.Battulga, 1/3 give white votes. We call it white votes because
white ballots. He called for them to give white or blank ballots.
And 1/3 supported the People's Party candidate. The other 1/3, Mr. Battulga.
Went to Battulga,
which made him possible to win the elections.
Right. So he did take some of those.
Yes.
MPRP, which seems to some outsiders surprising, given that the MPRP and the MPP had more traditional history. They were once one party.
Correct. The major reason of his winning is people had to choose one of them. It was hard for them to do it in the first round because people are fed up with two political parties that run in separately or in a coalition in the country for the last 27 years. People are tired of because they keep promising many things, but actually it is the country is staying in more foreign debt, less foreign direct investment. People pay through increased prices, inflations, and depreciation of Mongolian national currency, Tugrik.
So Battulga is seen as more of an outsider in the Democratic Party. He's not a typical candidate. He's quite anti-establishment. He's a businessman.
Kind of, though he is a part of establishment now already, and it is not very easy for him to make the difference in between two. And on the other side, his motto was all mineral wealth of the country will go for not 30 families as it is now, it should go to 3 million people. That's what he said. And it's very hard to find I haven't seen the right formula of having that done.
Yeah.
It is quite sophisticated economic incentives to go through, which was not the case, unfortunately, though it is in the political program of the Democratic Party. At the end, just before election, they have promised a huge thing to to pay off all personal debts in the country, which triggered.
That's right, apart from mortgages. But then he backtracked on that promise, although he did vow to continue fighting for Mongolia's poorest people. 1 in 5 Mongolians live in poverty, according to UN data. And right here in Ulaanbaatar, 40% of residents live in Ger districts, correct? With no running water and central heating. So clearly,
exactly, that's
poverty played a role in this.
These people were waiting for making easy life from Battulga more than the other candidates. And this writing off all personal debts promised by the Democratic Party, which triggered the promise of a ruling party to give money for every children. And what happened was a day, 36 hours during, on July 7th there was a re-election, but from July 6th till July 7th to midday, total 161 billion tugriks were distributed by ruling party to the accounts of all children, which is over than 70 million
children.
70 million US dollar, which is twice more than IMF bailout money first tranche, which was 38 million US dollar, which shows still the two large political parties are violating the rule of election. They try to buy out people's vote, legal and illegal ways.
But it seems it didn't win in Kh.Battulga's case.
And plus, though the Kh.Battulga case, they did not win, but the government spent that much of money for all children, which was the regarded as not correct practices, because the poverty issue should be addressed not to everybody. And then the IMF conditions was not to continue this sort of practice, even to eliminate in the short run. And unfortunately, I think Mongolian government is now not doing what they have promised to IMF conditions of this extended fund facilities.
The $5.5 billion refinancing financial support arrangement, bailout, some call it.
Out of this $440 million is coming in cash from IMF, and out of this 440 we received only half of it, not half of it, $38 million, and yet government is doing the things that agreed not to do, and that means the further tranche of IMF money maybe will be questionable, which is very unfortunate. And again,
well, there's also the other partners, the ADB, the World Bank, Korea, Japan. I mean, we'll have to wait and see.
Yes, in particular in the context of another $500 million one day in January next year, and the government, the budget is not ready for that, yet they have just within 36 hours distributed 161 billion Turks to the accounts of the children, and also the OCSC, from which I took the statistics, where we have an election observer, they said this money was distributed. And secondly, there was very frequent cases where both political parties have been distributing money to their voters for the purpose of buying their votes. So they were officially blaming each other. People's Party, for example, was saying that Ms. Battulga election campaign was carrying, Kh was carrying 1 billion Turks cash in a car which was arrested until the end of at least the first round of election. And Battulga had said that People's Party was distributing money with the help of police at night during the evening of the election day, he said. So it's a very important statement by the now current president, the new president, about the police. So now Mongolian peoples will demand the police chief of the country either to agree or to agree or disagree on that claim, and we Mongolians will demand very clear statement from police whether the police helped them to distribute money or not against the law. So that's another big issue we have to go through, along with many other issues.
Yeah.
Both political parties, if you remember, were claimed for corruptions. The People's Party were accused for planning to raise 60 billion Turks by selling high-ranking official positions in the government.
That's right.
The other side was blaming for other things. So I think
including Kh.Battulga.
our judicial system to go through many things.
Well, with Battulga to have the power to appoint the head of the International Agency Against Corruption, do you think we can expect to see some high-profile arrests in the years ahead?
That's a question, because many high-ranking profiles are associated with the leaders of both political parties, their candidates, many ministers, and Mongolia has a problem with having them responsible under our current legal and court system. President has a quite big right influence on our judicial power, and hopefully from the new president at least we will demand that justice which is missing in the society in case of many corruptions, alleged corruptions.
Battulga also promised in his campaign to provide more checks on the ruling MPP, which holds the vast majority of seats in Parliament, 65 seats compared to just 9 seats for the DP. But how realistic is that, given that the powers of the president are limited?
That's a very good question, because by law our president has a very symbolic role, though we have been witnessing that our president also has a power to keep increasing his power, like anti-corruption agency and the intelligence agency, and the more it goes, he has a power to increase his power. So
that's a nice power to have.
And that's why I think once, as you said, the 65 seats of 76 seats in the parliament now run by the People's Party, which is planning to have a national referendum for this year for amendment to constitutions, which will include more clearness of power of president in the system.
Fascinating. So the rivalry between the MPP and the DP
probably
will be fought out through the presidency and parliament.
Probably I read like by the end of this year we end up with very clear, shorter or limited power of president in the constitutions.
He will have the power to
vote
with the majority in parliament, the right to nominate a new candidate for prime minister. So that could be interesting.
Yeah,
it's unlikely he could get that majority.
Another test will be the 49% of Erdenet shares, and which was just a few days before elections, the second round. They made the ruling party had made decisions that all shares will be now owned by all Mongolians. And how all will go with the context of buying from Russia with this questionable money, then the government is taking the share, then the law says, the legal system says it's wrong. So I think a lot disclosure of this case will be the case of approving or not approving what Mr. Battulga had promised on the way to the presidency.
Well, Erdenet being, for viewers who are less familiar, the mine that was bought back by a private Mongolian company from Russia on the eve of parliamentary elections last year. Mongolia bought back, this Mongolian company, Mongolian Copper Corporation, bought back the 49% stake in that mine. It happened very quickly and very quietly, and it has caused a lot of controversy ever since. So yes, it will be interesting to see what happens with those shares and what Battulga suggests, because he can propose new legislation.
So let's wait for that.
Yeah. Let's talk now about the new taxes that took effect July 1st, including on fuel, green cars, such as hybrid and electrics, as well as on social insurance fees. Jagol, I think for most people, fuel is the big one. Can you explain how this works?
Well, this new government had suggested 2 rounds of tax increases. First one is done, which was on tobacco, interest on savings and cars. But now second one, it came just now from July 1st. This is it will affect fuel, hybrid and electric cars, and social insurance fee, out of which I would like to give some explanation about fuel. Fuel, yes, you are right, and the fuel price is increasing, the other prices keep increasing afterwards, like in any small economy or in not diversified economy. But however, the fuel price was kept artificially low by subsidy, which was given in form of cheaper loan to 9 or so oil products importing companies, all of them almost from Russia, importing. But they have been given big money when the price was high and of no increase. But when the price went down, they did not also decrease. They said, "Oh, you said we agreed to keep it constant, not decrease or not increase." So they have been gaining from that different price a lot. I think our oil import companies made good money on that. But now, when the price goes back, they suggest now we will increase. Then the government is now manipulating with, there's a special excise taxes on fuel. And there was very big, now they are decreasing so that they don't change the price. But my take on that is the government cannot take forever that stand. It is too expensive. At the end, it seems the price is constant, but at the end, people pay taxes. That's one of the reasons why all taxes are increased. So,
which was part of the conditions for the IMF-led bailout.
Yeah, but IMF have not pushed on that conditions, by the way. It was the government who suggested first. And they did it, now they keep increasing.
Oh, it was necessary for their new budget.
From the government point of view. And the second issue is about this social insurance system.
Yeah, how will that work?
They have increased, for
higher
example,
pension premiums, is that right?
Yeah, they have increased, you know, in Mongolia we have 10%. Employee both pays 10% from the salary.
Right.
But now they're increasing by 1% each. Then what happens, there will be eventually
about
increasing.
About 1% a year until
2020. It will be 26%, from current 20. So what does it mean? You know, like former socialist country, it's very hard to fire employees here. Now it makes even difficult to hire employees because now to hire employees is very expensive now. So I don't think that tax increase is making first employers competitive.
So you think it could hurt
businesses
jobs?
Competitive? Yeah. And second, Mongolian pension fund is bankrupt. It's de facto. They keep increasing, keep paying the money from budget. And now, even before the election, remember, as a part of the promise, People's Party have decreased even pension age. They were initially increasing. Now they said they made a law: women at 48, men at 55 instead of 65.
That was during the election.
Yeah, they can have. But there was a law already gone. The law is approved now. A woman can go, if they want, at 48, men at 53 instead of 65, which makes the budget burden on pensions even more. And the country is making, along with the children money, they have distributed 161 billion tugriks within 36 hours. Altogether, this makes the Mongolian state budget very difficult, very hard sum, and still they are borrowing money. So the IMF and other international agencies should have in mind that they should not bail out the sort of populistic steps by the ruling party at the cost of ordinary Mongolians who pays tax. That's how I read.
In addition, we have that rise from 0 to 50% on green vehicles, including the country's most imported car, the hybrid Toyota Prius. Is the government going to somehow subsidize that increase?
No, I don't understand Mongolian government when they have increased the taxes first. Then they say that no, they will exempt from that taxes many people. It's fact that out of all these cars in Ulaanbaatar city, for example, almost 60 or 70% Japanese car. Out of them, almost 50% Prius, which is all right-handed car, which is completely wrong in the country where the rules are different.
There were protests over this earlier in the year. I mean, one Prius importer set it on fire in response, and then they had to delay this from April until now. So
it means if the government is making decisions on the same issue twice into 180% different from each other, it means government, before making decisions, they should have a proper research. They should have predict the changes, and they should announce when the law will be implemented. Which you should give a certain year or two for business to adapt to this new law, which unfortunately is almost never happening. Creates a lot of
uncertainty for those importers. Definitely.
The government does know the situation, but they promise everything everything at the cost of their election winning.
Well, moving on, Mongolia's economy is showing some signs of recovery, with foreign direct investment almost doubling from April to May. It's now at 63 million in May, up from 39 million in April, $39 million. Moody's credit rating agency also changed its outlook on Mongolia's banks from negative to stable. Jargal, do you think that as a result of this, perhaps people will look more fondly on Mongolia? Maybe it will be able to refinance that bond repayment in January.
The issue is now we are repeating the same song like in 2009 after the crisis of 2008. Similar situation.
After the IMF comes in.
Now even we have a bigger, different situation with more foreign debt. 7 years ago it was mostly, 9 years ago, 8 years ago it was mostly the budget deficit issue. Now it is not only a budget deficit, also a foreign debt issue. So in this context, the government goes and the government goes is announcing too earlier that economic is good. It's like it's a very political step, because the economy goes better because coal prices have increased. Coal export have increased, almost doubling at the same amount of last year.
China's importing more coal.
Yeah, but also
they're not taking it from North Korea.
Yeah, but with North Korean sanction now, China needs to take it cheaper way, which is closer, which is from the closest neighbors. So that's what they do. And by all means, the copper prices come.
It's still too dependent on resources, right?
Exactly. Copper prices also come up. So these two prices driving up the economy better, it doesn't mean that the country is doing better. We are not doing at all. We are still in foreign debt. We are, compared with the last year, we are longer term, bigger debt. This Horalday bond made 5 years bond, 7 years, 5% per year coupon rate bond into 8%.
Horalday bond being the one that was just
before
agreed,
IMF comes. Yes.
With investors right before.
That's one. Secondly, with first the IMF money, first tranche came about 38 million US dollar into the coffin of the government, and they were able to pay now finally with less cost money the salary of public officers, which made them not to issuing domestic debt, which is at 18% interest rate, which was very expensive. So first time they stopped the issuing that debt, which makes the balance looking better, current expenses are looking much better. So altogether it gives you some kind of picture that like economy is improving. In fact, I don't see the deep current changes, current trends are changing in the country.
So don't let the numbers fool you, I guess. Well, finally, Mongolia's biggest holiday of the year, Naadam, is about to get underway with the traditional 3 manly sports, as they are known: wrestling, archery, and horse racing. Jagul, can you tell us a little bit about the history of this
Mongols
festival?
were consisting of many different tribes. Each of them, due to the similarity of their economics, pasture land, nomadic culture, we have somehow created out this the 3 games called 3 manly games. It's since very ancient time, even before Genghis Khan, over 1,000 years, I believe at least. And we were exercising it. A boy is supposed to do this exercise from the very childhood.
And Genghis then used it to recruit
Yep.
people, right? The strongest ones he could spot through these games.
That's why it made us very competitive, each individual. But that's one of the reasons why Mongolians are very competitive in the individual sport. Not
There are no team games, that's right.
All wrestling is Mongolians champions, somewhere, here and there. Another thing, interesting story, why they have a naked or bare chest was because in the 16th century, a woman was wrestling. At that time, everything was covered. A woman was wrestling and winning everybody. And then later on, they found out it's a woman. So they have an order to open up. That's the reason why.
They've got to make sure it's definitely not a woman, otherwise.
So in any case, we are coming to this largest summer event festival of Mongolians in a couple of days, and hopefully everything will go on after, in particular, new president. It's a big deal that the new president will open that ceremony.
Yes.
That's the reason why they have the official ceremony of handover tomorrow. On 10th it will be done. Then on 11th he is coming to
opening the games,
which is a big important deal.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Sayhan Nadare from Jagul and myself. Good night.
Happy Naadam. Bye-bye.